But you have to look out for the family. That's what you'll be able to know. Sometimes you got to look out for the family.
Hello, everybody. I'm Ferris Broxton. I'm the nation's most important unheard eyewitness that the FBI is silencing. I busted the chief suspect in the grand conspiracy investigation, but our corrupt government has been silencing me for years. From FISA victim to a silenced witness to putting all this together on my own dime. I'm presenting you the top national news, the evidence that is the key to our biggest, most important national security investigation in history, the Grand Conspiracy. Today, I'm covering another hitman and mafia kingpin that's closely related to Sally Quillian Yates' crime family. Even better, that hitman's son has close to Sally Yates' family member who's still in authority right in the center of the hotspot in Winder, Georgia. For 50 years, this man has been in the center of this cover-up, right next to the last living member of the Dixie Mafia, as far as everybody believes. Sally Yates' family has been protecting the Dixie Mafia for a very, very long time. Billy Sunday Burt is the most prolific hitman in Georgia, if not U.S. history. Now, I didn't say murderer, I said hitman. This mobster that we're covering today is number 4 with close ties to Sally Quillian Yates' family. I want you to decide if this hitman operated on his own motivation or if he was the hitman for the deep state family of politicians that's run Georgia since its establishment. In other words, I want you to determine if the chief suspect who classified Donald Trump as a Russian intelligence agent comes from a deep state family that is determined to control our government by whatever means necessary. Not only am I going to expose the Dixie Mafia legal family of Sally Quillian Yates today, but I'm going to reveal a room full of witnesses. That's right. An entire room full of eyewitnesses that heard the testimony of a Dixie Mafia member saying that the Dixie Mafia was a very religious organization. I've already shown in previous podcasts that Sally Yates' family used the early Methodist Church as a cover for their Masonic corruption. This former Dixie Mafia member had to become an ordained minister to get out of the Mafia and not get murdered. There's a whole lot more that he told us, but like I said, there was a room full of witnesses. I'm sure I'm not the only person that remembers what he said. We've covered 3 protected murderous mobsters in the earlier podcast. 2 were undeniably close blood family with Sally Quillian Yates' grandparents and the founding families of Georgia. The 3rd was a close associate who was also probably a blood kin family member, but I can't prove that. All had close ties to a secret society, the Masons, and the early Methodist Church. They were all close associates. They have a long history of murdering the witnesses and take vows of loyalty to each other through the secret society of the Freemasons. Vows that if they snitch, they deserve to die. This week, our Mafia kingpin, another protected man, Billy Sunday Burt, proves to be one more protected member of the family. This is the kingpin Dixie Mafia hitman that kills the snitches. Today, I'm going to closely link this protected hitman to Sally Yates' parents, her cousin Jimmy Terrell, and herself to the Dixie Mafia. I'm also going to show that the claims I made about Sally Quillian Yates orchestrating a racket, a grand conspiracy in my case, follow the exact pattern of organized crime that she and her family have used to control our government. Let's start by letting the last living member of the Dixie Mafia, the hitman's son, tell us about how a kingpin operates. Video 1, please.
A kingpin has his own world. And for Cliff Parks, it was Jackson County. In that county, he was all powerful. He owned the sheriff, he owned the DA, he owned everybody. When I say owned, they were on his payroll one form or another, and if they want to take him down, they'd have to go down with him. That is what a kingpin does. He gets everybody into the tangle of his web.
So that's Billy Stonewall Burt, the last living member of the Dixie Mafia, the son of our star today, Billy Stonewall Burt, the glorified mobster murderer. Billy Stonewall Burt is telling you about Clifford Park, one of the mobsters we already talked about, and what a kingpin does, how he ties everybody into his web so that when they go down, everybody else goes down with them. Now, we already saw that with Clifford Park and A.D. Allen and the Quillian family that was tied to him, the district attorney, as along with the sheriff. Okay, now while that's fresh in your mind, I want to play a clip from a spy telling me the same thing, in my case, threatening myself and all my friends and family who they tried to spy on and manipulate using FISA. Video 2, please.
You and every single one of the people that was involved with for their own personal satisfaction, means, and desires. And there's not a one of them going to sit in that seat and going to lie. Not a one of them.
This is fantastic. See, what you got here is you got somebody that just came on as soon as I got in the truck.
Then when they get through, let me tell you what would be the results here. When they got through with the court hearing, they would be putting the handcuffs on every damn single one of them, and they'd be going to prison. And if you don't believe it's true, do it. Just put it together. I dare you to. I dare you to.
Well, I tell you, it's hard to listen to mobsters threaten me and my family, but that's what I lived through. That's FISA abuse. And those videos and many more are available at my name, Ferris Broxton, on Rumble, or by going to ferrisbroxton.com, and I'm doing what I can to set that up so more people can find it in more places. My Nuts Trending Topics News has been covering this story for a long time now. But what you hear here is somebody threatening me with the exact same thing that Billy Stonewall Burt said a kingpin does. If you want to put all this together, we're going to take down all of your friends and family. Oh, okay. Let's make sure that we expose who's behind this. Who is the kingpin that could have orchestrated this? A FISA warrant? Only Sally Yates. Nobody else could have done this. Run a massive FISA operation. That would have to be done by a top federal law enforcement official. The laws of entrapment would protect the people they spied on to manipulate. Now back to the Quillian Terrell family hitman, Billy Sunday Burt. Billy Burt killed at least 56 people and was a hitman for the Dixie Mafia. We have played videos of the authorities stating this in previous episodes. He carried out hits from Texas to the Carolinas, according to his family and law enforcement. But the vast majority of his crimes were concentrated around Winder, Georgia. Barrow and Jackson County, Georgia were the hot spot. We laid out the facts in previous videos that Sally Yates' uncle, Alfred Quillian, was the district attorney who protected the Dixie Mafia, which were also his extended family. Alfred Quillian was a Mason in the Masonic Lodge in Winder, Georgia. It's in his obituary. We put up evidence to show that Sally Quillian Yates' grandfather and father were local lawyers in Winder, Georgia. They were also Georgia Appeals Court, Georgia Supreme Court judges. They were members of the courts that repeatedly let the murderous mobsters go free. We relived the attempts of an upright lawman that ran against and defeated Alfred Quillian. Floyd Horde was blown up at his house in a car bomb just before he could convict Sally Quillian Yates' family members and their protected criminal organization. In previous episodes, you saw me say that I was a witness against the criminals still running organized crime in Georgia. I specifically named Jimmy Terrell as a white-collar mobster that Sally Yates told me about. When I said that, I had no idea that Jimmy Terrell had close ties to the Dixie Mafia for over 50 years. First, I found that Jimmy Terrell was a distant cousin of Sally Yates, using their family's publication to announce that he's a member of a family that identifies themselves as secret society Masons. Then, about a month ago, I found that Jimmy Terrell was still standing right next to the last living member of the Dixie Mafia, coaching him, while authorities searched for bodies, victims of his father, the hitman that we're covering today. So, let me get to a graphic here, if I can find it. What do I do with my graphics? No. We're going to have to start over, aren't we? Sorry, folks. My mistake. So this is a Facebook post on Rock Solid, the true story of the Georgia's Dixie Mafia. And this is Billy Stonewall Burt's post right here. It says, at my dad's funeral in the April of 2017, I was sitting on the front row with my wife on one side and Jimmy Terrell on the other. Public information. You want to tie Sally Quillian Yates' family, but wait till you see where else he goes. To the Dixie Mafia, it's not hard to do. All right. So, then I found Jimmy Terrell has been standing next to Billy Stonewall Burt for the last 50 years, through the investigations into countless Mafia hits. Again, most occurred right in the little hometown of Winder, Georgia, where the citizens who talked disappeared. This little town where Sally Yates' powerful grandfather, father, grandmother, and uncle were law partners with the governor of Georgia, Ernest Vandiver, and the Russell family, which is still today at the upper echelon of the secret society. That's all public information. We already showed that Sally Yates' family, the top authorities, lived in the small town, and that everyone knew who was doing it. This week, I'm covering the Marietta 7. The Marietta 7 was a cover-up case. This was a case where 7 men were framed to protect the hitman, Billy Sunday Burt. In other words, the authorities conspired to frame a group of 7 men for a high-profile double homicide of 2 notorious doctors. Billy Sunday Burt and 2 of his accomplices murdered the doctors. But the authorities framed a group of men so that Billy Sunday Burt could continue to work as hitman for the Quillian-related Dixie Mafia. This cover-up job included firing a bunch of police officers, whistleblowers who were saying that this is a cover-up. Billy Burt continues to kill witnesses, while 5 trials play out on the national scene for 7 men accused of killing Doctors Warren and Rosina Matthews, while the witnesses are fired and silenced and murdered. Still, to this day, the children of the silenced police officers are coming forward saying, hey, my dad was a witness in this. This was a cover-up, and the murders were rumored to be hit jobs to silence the doctors. As it turns out, the doctors were pathologists. The Georgia authorities admit this is one of the most embarrassing times in Georgia history, but they're still protecting the perpetrators, still, to this very day. Just last week, I learned that Jimmy Terrell was the crime scene investigator for the murdered doctors. Murders that were carried out by Billy Sunday Burt. Graphics 1, please. So this is what I found. This is a news article. It's in the Madison County Journal, Thursday, April 13th, 2017. Jimmy Terrell, a retired law enforcement official and former interim county manager of Barrow County, who served as the chief investigator of the sheriff's office from January 1975 to December 1979, also said this was the case. Billy turned Stoney around and told him to get his butt straight. In other words, the Kingpin Dixie Mafia hitman turned his son around and told him to get straight, said Terrell, who eventually became friends with the Burt family. Oh, that's interesting. A lot of people around didn't like it, I'm paraphrasing. While Burt had already gone to prison by that time, Terrell arrived in Barrow County. Wow, so he was at the crime scene on the other side of Atlanta where Billy Burt was killing people, and then he moved to where Billy Burt had killed a bunch of people and he's the investigator in both. That's interesting. Well, just wait. He was also the crime scene investigator of the murder of two prominent doctors in Marietta, killings Billy Burt eventually confessed to. Wow, that's kind of scary. So right now, I've already got like red flags shooting up all over my head. Okay, you're welcome to read that article. So Jimmy Terrell was the crime scene investigator in the cover-up case to protect Billy Burt. Then he moved to Winder to oversee the countless investigations into the hit jobs in Winder. Let's go ahead and show once again that Jimmy Terrell is related to the hitman and the investigation he's overseeing. We already showed the close ties between the Dixie Mafia kingpin, Ambry DeWitt Allen, and the Quillian and Terrell families. They're very close. They're related. They're married many times, lived together, were in the same churches together where the secret society was. We showed that this secret society was in the Methodist Church, and they called themselves the Connection. Now that in the Methodist Church record. We showed that this early Methodist church had a bunch of Masons who were more dedicated to the Masonic vows of loyalty than to their religion. That also in the Methodist Church record. Okay, we tied the Park, Quillian, Russell, and Allen families together all the way back to the founding of our country and close family relationships with George Washington, a Mason. That this family, the Ball, Washington, and Park family, were at the top of the secret society in the colonies. We gave the names of the close family members of the protected mafia kingpin, Ambry DeWitt Allen. His close family members, their names, Russell Terrell Allen, Russell Allen, Hannah Terrell Allen, Sarah Elizabeth Allen Parks, Elizabeth Isabel Allen Terrell, and William Terrell Allen. We showed that the Terrells, Quillians, and Allens were one big family that conspired to protect each other and the Dixie Mafia long before they were known as the Dixie Mafia. Graphics 2, please. This is a memorial that was at the grave of today's hitman, Billy Sunday Burt. Despite reading countless books, news articles, many podcasts, dozens of podcasts, Teresa Allen's name is conspicuously left out. I found this article from the AJC. It seems that Jimmy Terrell is coaching the last living witness into leaving the Allens out of their father's story as much as possible. Despite the close family ties, despite him having to talk about the other mobsters, Ambry DeWitt Allen, named Allen, they seem to be hiding the fact that Billy Sunday Burt is apparently closest friend on his gravestone, at his grave, has a memorial. Teresa Allen, his mistress. That's right. Add one more Allen to the crime family of the Dixie Mafia. Why did Jimmy Terrell cover the crime scene at the Matthews murder? Terrell Allen, Allen Terrell? This is getting disturbing. Why did Jimmy Terrell move to Winder to be the investigator over his crime family? Why is Sally Quillian Yates' cousin, Jimmy Terrell, still at the top of government in Winder, Georgia, over the police force today? Jimmy Terrell is still top government in Winder. He is the mayor of Winder today. Now, when I go back and try to find records of who's who and when they were, AI tells me that he was the mayor of Winder when my case played out. When somebody called the police and said, arrest him, and the police looked at me and said, there's no crime here, but then arrested me. But when I look at Winder records, they show that he was not the mayor at that time. Kind of strange. I've seen a lot of newspaper articles about this corruption just disappear, just be completely taken off. They're gone now. I might have some of that. I've got some surprises. The murders and organized crime are still plaguing Winder today. One of the judges in my case that I already busted protected a cold-blooded killer who was also a magistrate judge in Barrow County just a few years ago. So this is a news article from the Reveal. It says he was convicted. I'm just going to read it to you. This is a Barrow County magistrate judge. He was convicted of murder by a jury of his peers within 3 hours. Then the judge let him go. Barrow County, Georgia, covered by Andy Perotti, who hasn't learned how to return my phone calls. Barrow County, Georgia, in October 2018, a Barrow County jury convicted Paul Hamilton of shooting and killing his adopted son. But instead of sentencing Hamilton to life behind bars, former Chief Superior Court Judge David Motes essentially reversed the juror's verdict by declaring himself the 13th juror and then filed his own motion for a new trial. I can't find any news on Paul Hamilton. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know where he went. I've tried really hard. But I already busted Chief Judge David Motes. He's retired now. But my case should put him in prison for life, along with plenty of other politicians in Barrow County. But this is disturbing, y'all. How can somebody, a judge, part of their club, put a bullet in somebody's head, say, I did it, and then walk free? Never to be heard from again. What's going on? Where's the rest of the story? Okay, so we still have a bunch of protected hitmen to cover in this series. Make no mistake about it. I can't cover them all today. Bonnie and Clyde Barrow, yes, the Barrow Gang, that's the same secret society family that Barrow County, Georgia was named for. David Crenshaw Barrow. There's two of them. Planters, enslavers, the aristocrat class of secret society, and yes, they were secret society. Doesn't matter whether you're talking about Barrow or Winder. The family names: Jackson County, Georgia, James Jackson, yes, a top Mason. Jefferson, Georgia, all the way down the line. The problem here is that the Dixie Mafia is the secret society. So you got Bonnie and Clyde Barrow, Doc Holliday, yep, from Jackson County, Georgia. That's right, an allied family of the mafia judge T-Pen McWhorter. Now that's on their family lineage. That's right. T-Pen McWhorter, the McWhorter family, Brevard McWhorter, all the way back through the Richard Brevard Russell family, is one secret society family, okay? And on their family lineages, it says they're allied families. From Jackson County, Georgia, previously, before it was split up into smaller counties, it was Franklin County, Georgia. Yes, Doc Holliday was a Mason, a protected hitman, a hired gun for the sheriff, and a stagecoach robber at the same time. That's public information. You can find it very easily. The question is, do we like having protected mobsters running around killing people? Do we like our government being run by organized crime? Because that's what we're seeing, is the top national investigation can't seem to recognize me and bring me forward as the eyewitness against Sally Quillian Yates, the chief suspect. Again, I'm sorry, I can't cover all the mayhem and the mobsters that come out of the Piedmont Judicial Circuit today, but I'm going to seal the deal on the nation's most prominent kingpin, Sally Quillian Yates, and her family's policy of grand conspiracy. The evidence is everywhere. When you look into one of these stories, you'll have questions because the news reports don't add up. They don't address the obvious suspects. Keep looking because the evidence is everywhere. It's like digging around and trying to find a loose floorboard, pushing and pulling, looking for something out of place. And then the trapdoor falls open. The evidence is everywhere. Let me just say this. The grand conspirators that are completely caught in my case are at the top of the government. Still, to this day, the chief superior court judge is my ex-wife's attorney, the person that advanced the racket in the courtroom repeatedly, that helped kidnap my son. The sheriff, Judd Smith, is a family member with Allens, Russells, and Terrells, a deep state family that's connected with all this mafia activity. He's horribly caught in my case and should be on his way to life in prison. along with Judge Motes and Nick Prim and plenty of others. Like I said, Jimmy Terrell is the mayor, still over the Winder police force, still capable of firing any police officer that notices anything out of the ordinary. So let's seal the deal on that today. We showed that our mobster Billy Sunday Burt has been permanently immortalized as a member of the Allen Terrell family on his grave. Something they're now trying to hide, but it's stuck in the evidence, and they can't get it out. Let's look at the cover-up, the story of the Marietta Seven. Two doctors have their home invaded by Billy Sunday Burt and his notorious partner, Billy Wayne Davis. The doctors are prepared. They're prepared for a hit job on them. Why are they prepared? Why is the female doctor a skilled shooter with a gun at the ready? Could it be that they knew they were targets for a hit? Could they have been witnesses to something sinister? Still, the wealthy doctors lose the gunfight with the two hitmen at their house, which is close to Terrell Bridge Road, west of Atlanta, where the Terrell family has been top lawyers and politicians for generations. Strangely, Jimmy Terrell is the crime scene investigator. Already I have red flags shooting up all over. It's too much just reading the introduction. You know something's wrong. What kind of doctors were they? They were pathologists. More red flags. Why would two hitmen be hired to kill two pathologists? What's wrong with one hitman? Why is this such a critically important hit job? Why is this big family name showing up as the investigator? At this time, the Attorney General of the United States, Robert Kennedy, has sent a massive deployment of FBI, ATF, and GBI to North Georgia to investigate the rash of organized crime concentrated around this area, historically run by the Russell, Quillians, and Terrells. Some 200 plus agents. Okay, so this area is historically controlled by the Terrell family with the crime scene next to Terrell Mill Road. Why is the investigator a man named Jimmy Terrell? And why does he move to Winder to continue to investigate all the murders that this hitman, protected hitman, committed? This is going to be one of the judges in the case. Okay, this is the obituary for Richard Russell III. Richard Brevard Russell III. It's online Athens is where I found it. Richard Brevard Russell III entered this world on 1930, yada, yada, yada. He left this world on October 20th, 2016, shortly after 5 o'clock p.m., or cocktail hour, as he called it. That seems a little insensitive, considering that he was one of the mafia judges, one of the judges in Barrow County that allowed the murders to continue. This happened under his nose, and now his family thinks it's funny to refer to 5 o'clock p.m. as cocktail hour. Then a woman named Deborah Ann Kidd. Okay, so Deborah Ann Kidd comes forward as a witness to say she did it. Deborah Ann Kidd is given complete immunity to testify against, she says her boyfriend did it, and 6 others. So 2 Marietta doctors are killed by Billy Sunday Burt and his partner in crime, Billy Wayne Davis. But a lady comes forward and says, oh, it was me. I did it. And my boyfriend and his friends, we killed the doctors. What? That's the way the story goes. Now, this is national headline news. Many, many different news organizations covered this. Okay. Immediately, that's why they call it the Marietta Seven, because those 7 men that were framed for this with the help of this Deborah Ann Kidd. Now, back in Winder, Governor Vandiver marries Rob Russell. Rob Russell's daughter is Governor Vandiver marries Rob Russell's daughter, Betty Vandiver. okay, the governor of Georgia, Betty Ernest Vandiver. And their child is Jane Vandiver Kidd. Now, that's a huge name in Georgia politics. A leader of the party. Governor Vandiver's family is also partners in the mafia also. And yes, long, historic, settling family of Georgia that are Masons. So you begin to have this really, really loud connection between Sally Quillian Yates' family and this Masonic corruption that's being covered up by Jimmy Terrell, right? So let's see if we can get you guys should get along pretty good. They should get along pretty good, shouldn't they? You like this? What am I doing here? Gonna get our star of the show here. By the way, the Dixie Mafia, you guys, they like that, I think. Hey, shut up, Jimmy. So Jimmy Terrell, the man that's been in the center of this crime for 50 years. So this woman, Deborah Ann Kidd, comes forward and says, I did it. I committed the murders. 7 people, okay, are framed because she blames them. Deborah Ann Kidd's her name. Now, Governor Vandiver, I've already showed that the Quillians in Winder, their house, okay, this is Joe Quillian. They lived in Winder, and Ernest Vandiver and his family members were part of the Dixie. I can't say Ernest Vandiver himself was, excuse me. His family members, the Vandivers, were part of the Dixie Mafia. Here's one where John W. Vandiver and Andrew Clifford Park, our well-known convicted mobster, the hitman that literally hired 3 guys to blow up the district attorney, are partners, okay? Again, John W. Vandiver and Andrew Clifford Park are partners. This case is U.S. Court of Appeals for the 5th Circuit, 283 F.2D.2F3. There's no real debate that this family connection's a problem. I don't think. Okay, so Governor Vandiver is now in Winder, okay, and Governor Vandiver is partners with Joseph Quillian. I showed you their house, okay? So Joseph Quillian, Sally Yates' grandfather, and her grandmother named Tabitha Sims Quillian, also an attorney in Winder, Georgia, okay? They lived in Winder, Georgia. You've already heard my witnesses say that everyone in Winder, Georgia knew what was going on and who was doing it. Wow. Little town, everybody knew it. You heard the recordings that I played in previous videos with the residents of that town saying everybody knew who was doing it. It was common knowledge. I want you to think about this. Were the mobsters operating on their own with all these powerful judges, attorneys, governors just watching? Or were the hitmen keeping the corrupt politicians in power? I ask because the citizens elected Floyd Horde to replace Alfred Quillian, and then he was blown up by Andrew Clifford Park. So I showed you the documentation of that. Now, Deborah Ann Kidd takes center stage in her performance with Jimmy Terrell at the crime scene, not in Winder, Georgia, in a different circuit on the west side of Atlanta, okay? Kidd testifies through 5 trials against 7 people, the Marietta 7, that the authorities are conspiring to frame. Her testimony changes every time. All 7 men are convicted and go to prison, with 1 on death row. In the meantime, the real murderers, Billy Sunday Burt and Billy Wayne Davis, are continuing to kill and pillage at will, protected by the authorities. But something goes wrong. A bank heist that nearly leaves a deputy dead succeeds, but Davis's wife accidentally finds some of the money and deposits it. So the authorities turn her on her husband, Davis, and Davis rats on Billy Sunday Burt. The protected hitman get caught by the bank. Billy Wayne Davis makes a deal to testify against his partner, Billy Sunday Burt, the most notorious hitman in Georgia history. Burt is convicted and gets multiple life sentences. Now, Billy Sunday Burt is angry and wants to get back at Billy Wayne Davis, his partner, his hitman partner in crime that ratted him out. Notice how easily the authorities can compel the toughest mobsters to testify against each other. But remember, Alfred Quillian didn't do that when he let A.D. Allen walk in previous videos. Billy Sunday Burt tells investigators about how Billy Wayne Davis shot Rosina Matthews. The authorities now have a serious problem. They have 7 innocent men that were just convicted that are in prison, one of them on death row. Now watch how the authorities protect the mobster and continue to help him commit heinous crimes. Video 3, please.
With Burt already given 2 life sentences and 2 death penalties, how much worse could it really get for him? Defense attorney Bobby Lee Cook asked Burt things that only the murderer would know to substantiate his claim, and for his signed confession, Burt made a deal for the families of the Marietta 7 to pay his wife, Jenny, $20,000 in exchange for his confession, which they happily did.
He asked him the trajectory of the bullet. He asked him who was with him. He told him that him and Billy Wayne and Willie Hester, that him and Billy Wayne went in. The doctor pulled Billy Wayne's mask off. The woman was a professional shooter. Willie Hester just drove the car, although he got shot on the way out.
Police sources say Burt is...
So there you have it. Billy Wayne Davis and Billy Sunday Burt committed the murder that 7 men were framed for. And they were able to... Billy Sunday Burt was able to explain even the trajectory of the bullet that killed the doctor, okay? He was there. He knew exactly what happened. He's already in prison for multiple life sentences, but he wants to make sure that Billy Wayne Davis gets caught. So he gives all the fine details of the murder, proving that it was him. Now, we know that there was a cover-up team, okay? Because these guys came in, and this is all going to come out in the wash. How did Deborah Ann Kidd convince 5 different courtrooms that she was there if she wasn't there? How did she know what happened? Well, we know the crime scene investigator was Jimmy Terrell. We know a bunch of cops were fired or forced to resign because they were whistleblowers. Now, there's 2 separate storylines I want you to follow here. 1, Billy Sunday Burt continues to get protection and favoritism. He's allowed to extort money from the families of the 7 men who are in prison. The most deadly man in Georgia is allowed to continue to commit crimes with the full enablement of law enforcement. He literally extorts money from the victims with the help of law enforcement. 7 men are in prison. They very clearly, in that clip, say that Billy Sunday Burt is allowed to extort money for his testimony against, or for his testimony that he was part of this. But they already have it. They already have his testimony. They can prove it's just this simple. He confessed to the crime in order to convict Billy Wayne Davis. The authorities have his statement. The investigator, this is what should happen. But this is how corrupt these people are. The investigator should go to the governor and say, the Marietta 7 are innocent. We have the man that did it right here. And we can see that the witness that testified can't even get her story straight, okay? That this is all fabricated. The Marietta 7 are innocent. Show them the evidence and the governor can publicly pardon the Marietta 7. It's that simple. The authorities manipulated the situation to pay off their hitman with the victim's money. They allowed the hitman to say, I'm not going to testify in court unless these innocent men, 7 men that are innocent, that are on, one of them on death row, the rest of them doing life sentences, pay my family $20,000. And the investigators help them do that. Was Jimmy Terrell one of those investigators? Because it seems to me that They said he was. This is organized crime by the police in plain view. It's not really hard to put the pieces together. The authorities manipulated the situation to pay off the hitman with the victim's money. Now remember, one of the governors during the heyday of the Dixie Mafia is Ernest Vandiver, a law partner with the Quillians and the Russells in Winder, Georgia. Why didn't the papers cover that? What's wrong with our media? I'll tell you what's wrong with the media. They are the deep state in most cases. The Jackson Herald and Mike Buffington continue to cooperate with Sally Yates' crime family instead of exposing them. I have a bunch of testimony about that, and that has to wait for another day. Jimmy Terrell is a contributor for the paper instead of being exposed by the paper. The citizens are deceived by the media. That's the problem. Just like Sally Yates classified Donald Trump as a Russian intelligence agent, and the people that got the news reports believed that. Stay with me here, because I still haven't rung the bell. This is going to land right in the Methodist Church where Sally Yates' family has found cover for generations. Protection behind a veil that's even less recognized than the Masonic lodges themselves. Now, on one storyline, the hitman is protected in prison. He's taken off death row. They don't continue to prosecute him for the 56 murders they know he committed. Instead, he's allowed vacations. And you can watch this on the podcast in the Red Clay. He gets to go visit a local county jail where the sheriff's crew buys him what he wants to eat and provides close visitation with his family. They're allowed to bring in video cameras and tell stories glorifying his mafia career. The murderer is glorified. In fact, I think he's being honored right now for things like the fastest whiskey car. It's just all so sick. They're allowed to bring video cameras into his cell and visit with him as he tells stories glorifying his mafia career. You can listen and watch those at the podcast in the Red Clay. He's allowed to go to church in Jackson County, Georgia. No shackles, no restraints. He's allowed to hang out and eat and fellowship like any other ordinary visitor in that church. It's on video. Here's the question. Is this another protected mobster? Who was he working for? Now, the other storyline. What went wrong with the cover-up? Remember, Jimmy Terrell was the crime scene investigator for the Marietta 7 cover-up. The common thread between both storylines with the Burt family, while they go public and profit... The common thread, you got both storylines. The Burt family goes public and profits from their career, right? From the crimes of Billy Sunday Burt. They write books, everything else. But he also is at the crime scene of the... Sorry, one more time. You got two different things going on here. You got the Billy Burt profiting from the murders, right? He's able to pay off his family with the help of law enforcement. Many of his family members go public. They've got podcasts. They have, with Jimmy Terrell standing right next to him, they're able to sell books and continue to profit off of the Dixie Mafia, okay? But let's go back to the 7 men that were framed, okay? And what happened with the Marietta 7 cover-up, because that gets into more and more of this, the papers, the lawmen, all covering up the crimes of these murders. So what happens is the papers begin to say, hey, this is really messed up. We got a murderer, a guy that's on death row that didn't murder anybody, and 7 of his friends that are serving life sentences. So the news begins to investigate. Because remember, Deborah Ann Kidd has been the eyewitness that put all these people away. The police brought in a psychologist to coach Deborah Ann Kidd. This all comes out in the investigation. How did they frame 7 guys? How did this get past all the news and everybody? The police brought in a psychologist to coach Deborah Ann Kidd. and to help her get her story to the point where it would be believable. The psychiatrist hypnotized Deborah Kidd, and agents told her about the crime scene in a way that would allow her to recall the evidence they showed her. We're talking about hypnotism here. We're talking about organized crime involving drugs, chemicals. Now, a lot of what I got in this research was bits and pieces. The best place that I found the most information was it says the jailhouse snitch testimony. Okay, so this is a policy review, the Justice Project. Proper safeguards on jailhouse snitch testimony could have prevented this injustice. Now, this lists a whole bunch of cases, a bunch of corruption cases, but the point here is our authorities are the criminals. Our authorities are the people that are corrupt. And in this case, they literally had a psychologist come in and coach Deborah Ann Kidd and help her get her story straight. That is kind of unbelievable because she wasn't even there. The psychologist hypnotized Deborah Ann Kidd, and agents told her about the crime scene in a way that would allow her to recall the evidence they showed her in court. Can we get video 4, please?
She was actually put under hypnosis and fed information about the case by federal investigators. This was even reported in the papers. It's also rumored that she was being fed black beauties taken from the evidence room during this time. While under hypnosis, agents were walking her through the evidence they had gathered from the crime scene, such as what the interior of the home looked like, what Mr. and Mrs. Matthews were wearing, how they were killed, and the positions their bodies were left in. Kidd was sent to temporarily stay with a police officer during the trials, which resulted in the two having a romantic relationship for months. After the defense team looked into Kidd further, they found that she wasn't even in Georgia on the night of the murder. She was actually in Greenville, South Carolina. The 7 men initially convicted of the murder.
Wow. This is the blueprint that I've been making videos about for years. Hypnotizing typically involves a drug known as Rufinol or Rohypnol. This is a memory drug that will allow somebody to recall events, but only when they're reminded of something. So this will provide a convincing testimony by a witness whenever they're reminded of something on the stand. Who was the crime scene investigator? Because they say that the people who invested the crime scene did this. The crime scene investigator was Jimmy Terrell. Video number 5, please.
Agents were walking her through the evidence they had gathered from the crime scene, such as what the interior of the home looked like, what Mr. and Mrs. Matthews were wearing, how they were killed, and the positions their bodies were left in. Kidd was sent.
While under hypnosis, agents were walking her through evidence they had gathered from the crime scene. Who gathered the evidence from the crime scene? The papers say it was Jimmy Terrell. So now let's see what our killing crew were up to while Jimmy Terrell was busy with his victims at the murder scene. So all these federal, state, and local agents are at the diversion, the sideshow, the cover-up, where Jimmy Terrell is center stage. But the team of federal agents still haven't forgotten that Billy Sunday Burt and Billy Wayne Davis are mobsters on the loose. They have made an absolute mockery of the authorities on the other side of Atlanta. Now the feds have an eyewitness that's willing to testify in the Dixie Mafia. They have him in protective custody. Jim Dawes is the witness. He's in the center of the protected moonshine operation in Barrow County, and he's going to testify against a grand conspiracy that will bring all the mobsters down. Remember, moonshine is the hub. The central conspiracy that the entire Dixie Mafia revolves around. It's not 5 o'clock yet, is it? But once again, the authorities have another plan. They got to look out for the family because they are the family. Video 6, please.
Dawes swore out a statement telling what he knew of the operation and naming names. The information he provided was incorporated into a federal indictment, and he was subpoenaed to testify in a trial to be held in Greenville, South Carolina shortly after. Deputies stood watch at Dawes' home, and even Sheriff Thornton went so far as to stay overnight several times, sitting on the front porch, shotgun in hand. But neither the deputies nor the sheriff were at Dawes' home on the night of November 22nd, 1971, and that's the last day anyone saw Jim Dawes alive.
So the authorities have a witness, sheriff from a different town, standing there at his door with a shotgun, okay? They have guards. This is this massive project. They have a witness, and they're protecting him at his house. What could go wrong? Let's watch video 7, please.
Burt Dawes swore out a statement. Officers standing guard at Dawes' house had been relieved of duty for 3 hours. The information he provided was incorporated into a federal Thanksgiving. It would prove to be a fatal error in judgment. Burt grabbed Billy Wayne Davis, and the two dressed as FBI agents in black suits and ties, complete with black sunglasses and Davis's counterfeit FBI credentials. They knocked on Dawes' front door.
And when Davis knocked on the door, he was big enough that my father stood behind him, you couldn't really see him. And when Dawes opened the door, Davis said, "We have information that Harold Chance has been harbored here." And immediately Jim Dawes said, "Hell no, somebody's not here, come in and look." Well, the second one in the door was my father. And when Jim Dawes seen him, he knew it was over.
Okay. So what you have here is a man in protective custody. The police are at his house, sitting on the front porch with guns, guarding him. But then they all decide to leave. And somebody tells Billy Sunday Burt and Billy Wayne Davis, who are already caught murdering countless people, but they're caught in the Rosina Matthews murder, while Jimmy Terrell, the crime scene investigator, and Deborah Ann Kidd are covering this up. Okay? They're out killing more witnesses. Literally able to dress up like FBI agents and go up to the door of the man that's in protective custody and kill him. Who told him how to do that? Who told him where he was? This is mafia run by the law enforcement authorities in Sally Quillian Yates' family's jurisdiction, hometown. They're her neighbors, her grandparents' neighbors, family, okay? This has the marks of deep state all over it. The Jim Dawes murder is the job that ties back to the very beginning of the In the Red podcast in chapter 1. This is where the star of the podcast does something bizarre. The man that you're hearing there talk about this is the son of the mobster, okay? In the very first podcast, just to start it, he incriminates himself in a crime of conspiracy after the fact to cover up a murder that his father committed. This is how Sally Yates and the secret society operate. They say, "Give us assurance that we can trust you and we'll help you succeed. Take vows of loyalty. Let us get you on video doing something wrong, and then we'll know you're truly with us." Now, I don't think anyone can deny the authorities were using Burt and Davis as hitmen. And nobody can deny that Sally Yates' family was both the kingpins of the Dixie Mafia and the authorities that stood over them. But let's go back to the cover-up, because Jimmy Terrell and the hypnotist Shrink have work to do. I was a little disappointed that the papers let the corrupt psychologist off so easy. I looked him up. It was hard to even find out who he was. Edwin Presley Hall Jr. I immediately recognized the Hall name as a family that included notorious Masons like Lyman Hall, the signer of the Declaration of Independence, in an aristocrat family in Georgia. The Hall family includes Manly P. Hall, a very famous Mason who wrote a number of books on that wickedness. Edwin Presley Hall, the psychologist that criminally coached Deborah Ann Kidd, wrote a book also. I took a look at it and saw that he was connected to other Masonic families, some of the allied families of other protected criminals that we haven't gotten into yet. Strangely, in his obituary are odd yet telling statements connecting him with top members of the secret society. Graphic 3, please. This is the obituary for Edwin Presley Hall Jr., November 1941 to February 2022. Now, as you read through this, it says that he assisted the academic coach, yada, yada, yada. He had challenging issues. He partied at Pi Kappa Alpha, where his uncle, John Sparkman, was a member of the charter chapter. In other words, this big politician, Uncle John Sparkman, was a founding member of the Pikes. Now, I went back because I knew that the Pikes were established by the Masons. And sure enough, Uncle John Sparkman was one of the big Masons and big politicians. That's a pretty loud advertisement to somebody who knows what I know after studying the Masons. He was also appointed staff psychologist for the Douglas County Sheriff's Department. Then I saw something that caught my eye. Down at the bottom there, it said that he was a regular member of the Dunwoody Methodist Church. Dunwoody Methodist Church is a fair distance from both the fixed trials and the crime scene known as Barrow County, Georgia. This man was a long-term member and usher at Dunwoody Methodist Church. Now, Jimmy Terrell was Methodist, but that was in Winder. Then I remembered. It was Sally Quillian Yates' parents that were long-term active members of the Dunwoody Methodist Church. Can I get visual 4, please? This is Zara Terrell, Sally Quillian Yates' mother. And if you look down there, she'll see that her husband was Judge Kelly Quillian, Sally Quillian Yates' father. They lived in Dunwoody, and that she was an early champion of the Dunwoody Homeowners Association, an active member of Dunwoody Methodist Church and Choir. Now, this might be just a little bit rough on you, me presenting all of these really, really old people and saying that they are the kingpins of the Dixie Mafia. Well, I can't do it today, but I'm going to present some more evidence that will dispel that bad taste in your mouth about a little old lady being the mobster. Sally Quillian Yates' mother ripped off our country in plain view with Sally Quillian Yates' help. Literally did something in a court case that nobody was willing to stand up to her. Okay, now I'm an eyewitness against the late Zara Terrell Quillian. She was a friend of my mother-in-law, who was Judge David Mote's transcript fixer and Sally Quillian Yates' transcript fixer. She would come to my mother-in-law's house and help her decorate her house, no doubt as a favor to Sandy Saxton for fixing transcripts. She was also at my wedding. But since I know this is still a little hard to swallow, I'll be doing some follow-up to show the flagrant ripoff job that Sally Yates and her mother did in plain view. A flagrant heist of taxpayer money that nobody was brave enough to call fraud, but some reporters were brave enough to cover it. Still, I haven't told you about the room full of witnesses. Roughly 35 years ago, in an Episcopal church in Dunwoody, Georgia, I was in an incredible youth group, a wonderful youth group as a kid. The youth minister, was a stellar individual who has influenced many notable people. One night, our youth minister brought in a member of the Dixie Mafia. This man had become an ordained priest. I know. What? That was all kind of shocking to all of us. Yes, he wasn't trying to make a living preaching or anything like that. He shared his testimony that in order to get out of the Dixie Mafia alive, he had to become an ordained minister so they wouldn't kill him. Now, that's a real interesting situation because this was at least 15 years after Billy Sunday Burt was locked behind bars. And yet this man still was really concerned for his life, a former member of the Dixie Mafia. He knew it was weird to us to have him sharing his testimony as an ordained priest. But he repeatedly explained that the Dixie Mafia was a very religious group. Off base, yes. Still, they were very religious and would be hesitant to kill a minister. This man, the Dixie Mafia man that came to our youth group, shared his testimony about being a very heavy drug user and addict and smuggler, being involved in crimes that he wouldn't mention, all the way to becoming an ordained minister so that he could get out of that. Now, there was a room full of witnesses. I'm sure that there's plenty of people that remember that today. This youth group was fertile ground where many young people like myself dedicated their lives to serving Christ. In fact, a couple of the members of Third Day, one of the most popular rock and roll bands, if not the most popular Christian rock and roll band in history, came out of that group. They were good friends of mine. The Methodist Church has rejected the Freemasons publicly, but not until the mid-1980s. It took the leadership a while to figure out that the parishioners could read for themselves. As far as the sweet little old Jimmy Terrell is concerned, let's look back at the cover-up and what's still going on today. Now, the corrupt psychologist wasn't just a conspiring criminal. He was a staff psychologist for the Douglas County Sheriff's Department. How would you like to be an honest cop there? These people had to resign. How would that work? I've testified in my videos against corrupt shrinks. In my case already, I've seen enough corrupt psychologists and psychiatrists to feel sorry for the honest police officers that are under a police chief or mayor or U.S. attorney like Jimmy Terrell or Sally Yates. Remember, Jimmy Terrell is the mayor of Winder now. If Jimmy Terrell recommends any Winder employee for a psych eval, then what happens? Let's hear from one of these witnesses. Now, this is graphics number 5. What this is what I came up with when I started trying to find information about the Marietta 7. It took me to Facebook, and there's a lady on Facebook that says, "My daddy was threatened after the investigation and later resigned from Cobb County, but not sure who was threatening him. He was even being followed by the person because he was investigating the case. I wish I could find some answers about that." Wow. Well, it just so happens that this woman has a constitutional right to ask that question. Now, it's really kind of scary because she also asked another question. And the question that she asked in the lower section there is she says, "I was young when this happened, but it seems like I remember him," that'd be her dad, "telling me this husband and wife had info and somebody wanted to keep them quiet." So the pathologist doctors, what were they a witness to? What did they know when Jimmy Terrell came in and took over the crime scene? That's really disturbing. Well, I've tried. It obviously hurt her family. I tried to respond. But when I tried to respond on that Facebook post, I got something kind of strange that I've gotten when I've tried to reach other people like this on Facebook. I start typing, but the keyboard comes up over the screen of what I'm typing. So I can't see to respond. It seems like some kind of a real high-tech censorship. Now, I've had this before. This is very frustrating because you can't prove that anybody's preventing you from being heard. You can't prove that you're being censored. But it appears that somebody is separating the eyewitnesses. Somebody's separating the people that have a right to communicate using some real high-tech methods. Now, let's look at something else, because I'm going to get into some high-tech censorship type stuff and show you some of the things that Sally Yates is capable of doing. So let's look at graphics number 7, please. This is the congressional record that I pulled up when I started researching Sally Yates and the Dixie Mafia. And what I found was that there was a case where the Dixie Mafia was brought in. Sally Yates brought in the Dixie Mafia to testify for him. Wow, that's fancy. That makes her look great. Did they know that Sally Yates is the Dixie Mafia? I doubt it. But let's take a closer look at the Dixie Mafia man that they brought in to testify. Sally Yates brought in a man, and she called him Vince. The writer of the article picked up on it and referred to him as Convince. She convinced him to cooperate and help her convince the jury. The man's name was Roger Hanley. Let's look back at the censorship again. Who's into high-tech censorship? Who has the ability to do this? Well, I've long documented that Sally Yates was very, very smart, and that she had the ability to manipulate and to pass messages to people who were smart enough to pick up on them, and they would basically look at how was somebody going to respond? What's going to be the response to this? What will be the outcome of this? Anyway, what I've got here is I've got a news article that popped up as fake news on Facebook. So you may have seen this, but it says, the JAG arrest former Deputy AG Sally Yates for treason. That's what I've been screaming that she should be arrested for. In this Facebook, it's Facebook Trump Republicans meme, and it's a fake news story, I'll tell you right now. It says her wrists were shackled, her body shoved into the back of an SUV. She is now en route to Pensacola. From there, she'll be processed and flown down. But it's about Pensacola and the JAG. Now, it's a fake news story, but who would do this? Well, I'm here to suggest that perhaps it was her. And I think when you look at the case, that you're going to see that, because this lines up with everything that we've been showing today. My family's from Pensacola, Florida. That's where I lived after being released from 4 years of being held as a hostage in Barrow County. I had nothing. I had to start over from scratch. That's the situation they forced me into. They took one of my relatives in Pensacola and made him a puppet. They spied on him and made him a puppet. Pensacola was an early establishment of our country with a heavy Freemason presence in the police force and the military, long established. I lived on an island in Pensacola called Gulf Breeze, and off of Gulf Breeze, another island, taking care of my elderly grandmother. I was constantly harassed by spies following me because FISA abuse is a 24-hour surveillance. So spies would follow me and harass me. At one point, I got so sick of corrupt spies poaching in my backyard on a private island that I ran out in the water to get pictures of an identification number off of the boat. The police would not do anything about the poachers, even though I had videos of them poaching. They said, we have to get the numbers off of the boat. So I ran out in the water one night, grabbed the boat, turns to get pictures of the identification number off of the hull of the boat. One of the poachers stabbed me in the face with a trident, a fishing spear. And I still have the marks today, and I've mentioned that previously on videos. Local law enforcement wouldn't even write a report. nor take the info from the single truck and trailer at the boat ramp. When these guys stabbed me in the face, they threatened me. They just go to the boat ramp, we'll beat your brains in. And I did. And my neighbors saw it because they heard the commotion in their backyard. I ran up and got in the car, called the police, and said, if you want these two fishermen alive, you better come down and save their lives now because they stabbed me in the face and I'm going to be waiting for them at their boat. The police would not even take a police report, despite being able to tell very clearly that I'd been stabbed in the face. And I made videos of that at that time. I haven't found them yet, but there's a lot of evidence I have to review. The next day, when I went out to spearfish and dive, there was a massive Coast Guard speedboat that sat and watched me for hours. Now whoever made up these fake news stories about Sally Yates being arrested in Pensacola by the military managed to incorporate many aspects from my story. I think the message is clear. Just like this podcast started out, I think that Sally Yates knows how to accomplish a lot with that communication. There's a big fake news story going around that I did something, that I've been indicted. I think she set up the fake news story. A kingpin will tie their web around everyone so that if they go down, everyone goes down. I think she's threatening my family. She's under investigation. She has a real hard time passing messages straight to me, which gives me a lot more protection now than I've had in the past. But at the same time, I think she knows how to communicate that if she goes down, she's going to take down everybody in my family that she can. Well, I'm going to respond to that in a very clear and understandable fashion. To any prosecutor who seeks to manipulate my friends and family and twist the evidence the way Sally Quillian Yates' Dixie Mafia does, be advised, I will be demanding the full penalty of law for you. None of my friends or family, or even my ex's family, would have the ability to make something like this work. It would take someone like Sally Yates with her family connections, someone at the top of government that can get a FISA warrant to see it through, and somebody like Jimmy Terrell and Sally Quillian Yates, who have done this before and know how to do it. Now, we still have a lot to cover. This case is going to unravel the Jeffrey Epstein racket and a host of other criminal activity that Sally Yates and the deep state have been over for decades. When I stung Sally Yates, I told her that I would have to have the finest FBI agent in the Bureau accompany me if I was going to go hide out while they cleaned this case up and settled it for millions of dollars. They tried. I caught them. I got it on tape. The criminals in the spy agency will do whatever they can to gain control of you. And I got them on video, but that's for later episodes. Now, they're after your kids. They're in the colleges, in many fraternities, in the lodges, and in your local churches. I was warned many years ago by a member of the Dixie Mafia. I'm more than happy to sit down with any youth groups or any kids or any college kids or whoever to inform them of the wicked traps that these deep state criminals are setting for the people that are going to lead our country in the future. Till next time, lock your doors. Sally Yates is still on the loose. We hope to be back next week with a local reporter from My Not Trending Topics News. Look forward to seeing you then.